Remember, what we're trying to do is not to provide solutions to all our problems, not to find a story that fits all, not to arrive at consensus, but to be provoked, to be moved in ways that are quite unexpected, right? Just to be open, at least pedagogically, but also para-pedagogically, to possibilities that are beyond our frameworks of legibility, possibilities for thought, possibilities for life, possibilities for radical rest in strange places. Trauma and the citizen. As I say here, this is an attempt to investigate a politics of suffering and how this dynamic politics shapes, modifies, adjusts, and interrogates the citizen as a modality of settlement. I'll say that again, but slower this time. Notice the way that I frame that, a politics of suffering, a politics of suffering. That is, suffering does not happen in neutral space. Suffering is held in the stories we tell about suffering. What does it mean to suffer? Who suffers? Who has a right to suffer? Who doesn't? What can suffer? Can a table suffer? What is a human? Can a human suffer? Who is allowed access into the spectrum, the already racialized political spectrum that is the human? So suffering doesn't just happen. Suffering is an eco-cognitive, socio-material, onto-theological, epistemological shape. It is experience in its unevenness, and we're constantly having questions and exploring what this means, what it means to suffer, what it means to breathe, what it means to live, what it means to die. This is what I mean by a politics of suffering. And it is within this politics of suffering that our conversations about the somatic or psychosomatic phenomenon of trauma takes place, how it emerges, how it becomes legible. I want to investigate the citizen, you, me, the imperial subject, the one who has will and choice and decision-making capacities, the one who can think and anticipate and experience and love and be heartbroken. I want to investigate the citizen within this politics of suffering. The citizen as a modality of settlement, as an imperial magisterial decree of arrival. The citizen. So this is an attempt to renaturalize, that should be renaturalize, not denaturalize, renaturalize trauma. And I want to begin with another experience, or begin again with another experience that I had this time yesterday, when the college arranged a pilgrimage for me to the site of commemoration, the memorial gathering place for George Floyd, who died and was murdered in May 2020 by a police officer who pressed his body against his neck and suffocated him. It happened at the intersection between 38th Street and Chicago Avenue in Minneapolis, and precipitated a movement, series of protests, conflagrations, riots that left the city reeling under the weight of grief and burning fires and loss and indiscriminate, destruction. I was given a tour, and we arrived, and I met these sisters who were like, I hesitate to use the word tour guides. They are not tour guides. They're like grief guides. And they were touching this space that had been created to commemorate this thick loss, this insistence that Black bodies are not to be dismissed and our lives matter as well. I remember getting to the place, the site where it happened, the very site where that happened. You might have watched a video of this event I remember arriving there and immediately noticing that it happened at a crossroads, right? It happened at a crossroads. The murder of George Floyd, it happened at a crossroads. And the Yoruba people, as you might come to know, and maybe you already know this, I've said this many times, the Yoruba people are very, very fascinated with crossroads. Crossroads are not mere intersections. They're not highways, meeting each other. Crossroads are where things start to happen, where things begin to happen. Crossroads are where worlds are born, right? I noticed that this place that was an altar to George Floyd and the memory of his loss was populated by teddy bears, flowers, poems, art of different kinds, trinkets, jewelry, different things that had been composed around this site of loss. What came as a result of this making of an altar, a marking of names, a colorful remembering of postures and possibilities and denials, was a street was shut down. That area was shut down, and something emerged from that shutting down of this part of the city. What emerged was people doing things that they had never done before. Circles gathered, elders came, told stories, right? People started to take care of each other. People were, it was such, I saw we call it a petrol station back in Nigeria in the global south, a petrol station, a fuel, a gas station, right? It's called Speedway, I think. And the word speed had been, erased, and it was now People's Way. They reconvened the architecture of the place and made it this art project. And I remember thinking that this is how trauma often opens out into new kinds of relationalities, right? But the Yoruba people think about wounds as openings to other kinds of worlds, right? Like wounds as latent possibilities, hidden gestures, sidling the Garden of Eden, investigating, corralling, but also pulling the threads of reality so that we're able to be real for other gestures, other possibilities.